It is day 23 of South Africa's national lockdown, and there's still very little information about how the country will fully transition out of its current situation.
For now, the lockdown will end on the 30th of April, but even if it ends on the 30th of April, you can't just open the floodgates in one day. There has to be an orderly way. So expect that almost every week, new things will be coming, new conditions, new areas will be coming on stream. But some will remain in place for a very long time.
Across the country, frustrations are rising and slowly reaching a tipping point. On Tuesday, police had to fire rubber bullets to disperse angry crowds in Mitchell's Plain. Burning tires, chunks of concrete and smouldering mattresses were used by protesters to block the roads. The community largely survives on state welfare, and they were unhappy when government failed to deliver on their promise. And that's where we find ourselves this week on The Story, in the middle of a standoff between hungry residents and armed police.
You're listening to The Story. We'll speak to journalists and experts about the week's biggest story. This is what we saw, heard, and uncovered this week.
I have on the line with me News 24 reporter Jenny Evans, who was on the scene. Jenny, you found yourself in a sticky situation on Tuesday. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened?
Rian, it was on Tuesday we actually went out to Strandfontein, where the City of Cape Town has set up a big sort of tent city for homeless people in line with the Disaster Act directives that homeless people can't be living on pavements. And we've been trying to just go and monitor what's happening there, and we were really struggling to get in. And then we heard that there was a problem in Tafelsig. Now, I don't know if you know that area very well, but it's kind of out in the sticks. It's just sand dunes. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere-ish, and so it was quite a long drive over to Tafelsig. And honestly, it was a bit apocalyptic almost. I know it sounds very dramatic, but there was tires on the roads, chunks of concrete. Every law enforcement agency that you can think of, the police, the actual City of Cape Town's law enforcement guys who normally police bylaws and things, the Metro Police who do traffic. I mean, the army, it was like they all had their own version of their armoured vehicle there. They were driving up and down and also in their little vans in this sort of cat and mouse game with people. I didn't completely understand what was happening. So just kind of stopped and try and got a lay of the land and found a safe place to just observe from there.
So once you found a safe place and you could see what was going on, what was playing out in front of you?
All of these law enforcement authorities were all quite heavily armed. They had these kind of bands of bullets, the rubber bullets, they're kind of strapped around them and everything. And they were walking in rows, trying to just kind of hold people back and just try and contain people, and also shouting at people to go inside their houses. Because apart from the protest, the people throwing stones, a lot of people had started climbing onto their roofs to see what was actually going on, and the police were shouting at them to go back inside because it's a lockdown. It was very chaotic.
Jenny, what were the people upset about? What was the protest all about?
Okay, so first of all, they were upset about food. From what I picked up, they were saying, we want food. As we know, the SASSA offices have closed, so you can't actually go to a SASSA office now if you've run out of food and say, look, I'm really starving. I may not have been in the system previously. Can you please help me? And people didn't know how to get food. And what had happened was a counsellor had gone and handed out some food parcels in one of the wards. It's little grocery packets. It's got mealie meal and oil and rice and sugar and jam and things in it. And people had seen this and they were like, where's ours? And of course there wasn't enough to go around. And then people just got really angry and frustrated. And this created this chaotic scene. And the police had to just kind of come in and try and just sort of calm everyone down. So the issue was, we want food. Where's our food? They're getting food. Where's our food? And a lot of the people were shouting, why did they get food first? Where's our food? That was the main issue. But there were also other issues. They can't walk around freely, and they're very frustrated by this because it's one of those suburbs where you have to get into a taxi or a bus to get somewhere if you don't have your own car. So you can't just like Seapoint, go downstairs and go to the shop quickly to go and get a loaf of bread. So you can't walk around, and so they were being kept into the house. So there was that frustration as well. And also people who can't work. Suddenly you've got a house with 9 people in the house all day long. You go through your food very quickly. I mean, we all know it's all happening to all of us, but to a different extent over there. And so there was this food that was coming, and where's ours? How do we get ours? And they didn't get it. And it's this kind of venting of frustrations just played out with people burning tires and throwing stones.
This seems like quite a clash. How exactly did that play out?
It was mostly, I would say, youths, maybe young boys that are 10, 11, 12 years old, and then older men, maybe in their 20s. The topography of the area is such that you can actually group on a hill and form a kind of a sort of a barrier of people, and then you would throw stones down the hill at the police who were approaching you. So, and the suburb layout as well is such that there's lots of little crescents within crescents. So people would throw stones at the police and the various law enforcement authorities. They would shoot off rubber bullets to try and disperse the groups, and then chase after small groups as the groups broke up. And then they would disappear into the crescents, and then the police would run into the crescents and try and catch them. I understand 4 people were eventually arrested for public violence and for breaking the Disaster Act regulation that you can't sort of be walking around in public.
You know, this sounds like a problem that's endemic to Cape Town. We've seen a lot of the looting that's been going on in terms of grocery stores, liquor stores, those kind of things going on around the Cape Town area. Do you think it's limited to Cape Town?
There was a protest on Friday morning in Stellenbosch. I was actually at the Gift of the Givers. They are actually organising food parcel distribution themselves, and I was there and I heard about this, and I got hold of the municipal manager of Stellenbosch, Geraldine Mettler, to find out what was going on. And a similar thing was playing out there, although she said it wasn't as violent as the one in Mitchell's Plain had been. The same thing. They had food. They were distributing food, and people were like, very, very eager to get a food parcel, and were very frustrated that they had to wait. And Geraldine was explaining, and this was echoed as well by the Premier yesterday, Alan Winde. They've got money. They've got systems in place. They've already budgeted for 50,000 food parcels. But you have to be screened to get a food parcel. All right. So once you've got through to a call center, and the Western Cape's call center got 14,500 calls for help over the Easter weekend. They had to get extra volunteers in because there were so many people phoning in asking for help. So you asked if it was just Cape Town. I can't answer that because I've obviously just been focusing at the moment on Cape Town-based stories. But province-wide, they've had 14,500 calls just over the Easter weekend alone for people asking for help. Now, they have to be screened because what they're calling it, they don't want people to double dip. So they don't want you to benefit from every single program. They want to share what is available amongst everybody. So if you've already had your SASSA grant, somebody who hasn't had the benefit of a SASSA grant and is now in a situation in their life for the first time where their cupboards are bare. This is new to them. They don't know how to get into the welfare system. So they're phoning this call center for help. They're getting screened and their needs are being checked as well. So that's what was happening in Stellenbosch on Friday morning. The same thing. She said they had to just scramble and go and check the lists. And she said they've actually built up now a database of beneficiaries that they can cross-reference and make sure that the people who need are getting. And also Gift of the Givers is fanning out across the sort of the Cape Town area. They're also going to Eastern Cape. But they've also got a system where they also list, they're kind of plugging into community organizations and they're trying to prioritize the elderly, people who are looking after like really large number of children in a home, a pensioner, a granny, for example, who's got a lot of kids in the home and can't feed them because they're not getting food at school anymore. They're trying to prioritize, people who need food for their medication. So to get on the list is not your the be all and end all. You've still got to, once you're on the list, you've still got to wait before you get your food parcel, and that I think is causing some frustration as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say, sounds like a lot of the frustration comes from the bureaucracy that goes with getting any help.
Yes, I think so, and I think they're coming from a good place, the various departments, and there's Alan Winde was saying, the Premier was saying that there's 8,000 NGOs in the province that are helping, apart from the Department of Social Development and of course the national government. Everyone's trying to help, and what they're also trying to do is they're trying to coordinate and make sure that a soup kitchen in this area can cover those people, and they're trying to also coordinate. So they're coming from a good place, but because it's happened so quickly, it's not like a flood where you go there and there's a beginning, a middle, and an end to the disaster relief. We don't really know when this is going to end. So the planning is completely different to anything they've ever had to do as well, from what I'm picking up.
And with the lockdown being extended, what does the future look like for people in this community and their need for food parcels?
Things are very centralized at the moment. There's kind of national ministers are telling us what's happening and everything, and with a lot of the normal places that you would go to for help are closed. You can't, for example, go down the road to, say, for your House of Hope and ask for help. So I've noticed that opposition parties are increasingly rising now to the challenge, and also political parties are setting aside their differences, I've noticed in a lot of cases. Here in Cape Town, for example, the ANC is the opposition, and they are putting quite a lot of pressure on the council to make sure that these programs are run properly, because for the first 3 weeks of the lockdown, everything was in the hands of government ministers, and we sort of eagerly waited for the next briefing from Cyril Ramaphosa, and there didn't seem to be much oversight in the beginning, but I am picking up more oversight now, and I think that's actually going to help a lot. So I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on social development departments and on the NGOs and the NPOs that normally help. They're going to have to really work very hard and very quickly as well to prevent a flare-up again, like the one in Tafelsig and like the one in Stellenbosch on Friday morning.
Thank you so much, Jenny. That was Jenny Evans giving us insight into one of this week's biggest stories. And that's it for this week and this season of the show. We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back with fresh episodes when we kick off the third season of this podcast in a few weeks. I'm Rian Grobler, and our producer is Norutula Manyati.